Read the
How do you
blog.
know how much you should be doing agency-wide? He said that he's going to leave to go pay per cross-sell.
I hit 15 on the second.
That's a way to demotivate.
Never. Somebody called me. Somebody called me. I'm going to help him. I'm going to help him.
Hi, Stephen Harrington. This is our first, next to each other podcast.
No, we did it at the airport a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about our airport podcast. That was a fun one.
We tend to travel a lot. So we run into each other at random locations. Today we're at IAOA in Nashville.
We are. Now we're giving away how soon in advance we shoot these podcasts and the delivery of the pod.
It's all right. We're proactive, just like we want you to be proactive.
We believe in being ahead of schedule, not behind schedule.
Absolutely.
Hence why on Saturday morning at IAOA, we are here to talk about producer goals.
Who doesn't love producer goals? Should we hold our producers accountable?
Producers don't love goals.
Well, they should learn to love them, though.
They should learn to love them. So just by the name of the job description, producer,
that means they should be producing things like writing policy.
That's what I hear. However, in my experience, I've gone to agencies where the producers don't produce.
No.
It's
a big problem.
It's a problem. Or the producers don't produce, and we have them do some service work, but then be upset because they're not producing.
Absolutely.
By nature, if you are in a sales organization, producers need to have one thing, which is become profitable. Now, that might not happen overnight. We understand that there's a little ramp up period, and that would be different if it's personal, commercial, and how people are generating their leads, of course, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to produce in order to be a producer. So
that means you have to be proactively building a bucket full of things.
X dates.
Yes,
X dates, contacts, referral sources. So I find the idea of setting producer goals is very overwhelming for a lot of agents. And the reason I do find that is I'll go into an agency and I'll be like, what's producer goals? And sometimes it'll be like 15,000 in premium month. I'm like, what do they do?
15,000 premium a month. I wonder what that covers. Like, what does that cover? What expenses does that cover?
Doesn't cover much, but then also what do they do for the remainder of the month, right?
Maybe they're like, I hit 15 on the second.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of agencies just don't know what to choose. So we wanted to give them some advice, tips, tricks on how to choose a production. Personal and commercial are different, right?
Yeah.
Which is true. So I like to say in personal lines, you really need to be putting up about $45,000 a month, otherwise you're not. And I would say that that's like average to like baseline number. We definitely have some agents that are doing $100,000 a month or between 75 and 100, just depends on the seasonality where they are. So 45 that's all they're doing is selling is very
attainable.
Now, but let's talk about how in a lot of agencies, they have their producers doing other things than sales.
Correct.
And so if people are servicing and selling, that number goes down. But if they're truly selling,
they're just selling.
And I think if you want to grow agencies, you need to make sure your producers don't have to do too much other than just sell insurance.
They should be building relationships, following up on leads, and closing.
Yeah, they should be on the phone all day. So if your producer is also sometimes servicing, sometimes taking claims calls, that's very difficult. Now, when they get up to that 75, 80, 100,000, a lot of times they'll have an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Virtual assistant, somebody to help them pull, find, follow up, do the upload, all that stuff that you might think is simple and easy, but just eats up producer time.
A lot
of producers are not good detail work.
So if you have support staff for said producer that's following up to make sure things are signed, underwriting requests are fulfilled, everything's in the file that's supposed to be, the producer can focus on what they're really good at, which is writing the business.
Correct. But then we have sometimes people who are much better at the uploading and follow up and everything else, but we have them be a producer, and that's the wrong role.
Absolutely.
So sales goals, producers need to be money hungry. And that is a very, very important key. If you have a salesperson that doesn't like money, they are going to not work to the capacity that you probably need them to get them to be profitable.
Absolutely. You need to be looking at the number of quotes they're doing a month and their closing ratio.
We need to be doing that. We also need to be identifying to whose responsibility is it to generate leads. Is it yours? Is it theirs? I see a lot of agencies that do like a blended strategy, and that's a little awkward because they'll definitely take your lead over their lead because it's easier to sit at home and wait for the phone to ring. But we always tell people if it's generated by the agency, the commission level should be different. So
Right.
that's a way to demotivate.
So if it's self-generated, they should get paid a higher commission. If it's agency generated, a little bit of a lower commission.
Mhm. Yes, I agree with that statement. Wholeheartedly, people. A lot of times, if you have no producer goals and you're hearing this number, let me throw out my commercial number.
Okay.
I really think commercial, like no less than 60, definitely more towards 75,000 and maybe. And I look at, yes, I love revenue for commercial, but you have to remember that with workers' comp and things like that, depending what type of commercial you're doing, that could be different. So I don't want to get all revenue-y. That's very specific to your niches and what you do. The 75, 60 to 75 is really where people need to be on the commercial side.
Absolutely.
So you have no goals, right? You have no producer goals. Let's walk through this because we've been in this situation before. They have nothing. So agency owners, first thing we think about, we've got goals. People are going to walk. They're going to freak out. Everything else. Is that what happens?
Never.
But after we install the goals and people realize they're not hitting them, what happens?
We make them another agency's problem.
We relocate them outside the agency because they're not making you any money. And if they're supposed to produce, that is their only job is to generate money. So much easier to track a producer than an account manager because account managers have like shoots and ladders all day long, pluses and minuses. Are they successful or not? Producer is, I need you to make X for the business.
I think also like working with them and making sure they have the training they need, that we're looking at where they're
Like the
struggling.
APP sales training program.
Like the APP sales training program.
Okay, just checking if that was what you were getting at.
That's what I was
Okay,
getting at.
just want to make sure.
So I think just making sure that they have the resources and tools they need. We're giving them a fair chance by working with them.
Right.
And not just say, here's your goal, sending them to the walls that they've never had a goal before.
Yeah.
But really look at where they're struggling. So we have to look at what they're bringing in, what kind of quotes they're doing. Is it monoline? Is it package? Like, how can we help them become a better salesperson?
Right. And I think my experience, we train salespeople how to quote insurance and we forget to train them how to sell insurance. So a lot of their processes are around perfect quote unless they're around a great delivery and opportunity. And that is something I think needs to be dealt with.
I think the sales workflow is very important.
Yes. And then you have to be able to help them overcome objections, like find and categorize the key strategies that we're going to show. But
and really focusing on what's a good fit for the agency as well. I think that a lot of times they get so like my phone rang today. Like somebody called me. Somebody called me. Somebody called me. I'm gonna help them. I'm gonna help them.
Right.
And it could be a horrible fit for your agency's culture, what your agency markets are, and they waste their time on the lead that's not a good fit.
Right. Now let's talk about like we set these goals, and there's a whole blog on this, guys, that go into detail, like excruciating detail of you need to even take it one step further. We're not going to talk about that today, so it's like a little like clickbait to get into our blog. But how do you know how much you should be doing agency wide, and then dividing it between account managers for cross sales, producers? Like you need to know your growth goal and then back your way into what the agency needs to sell this year. But some agencies like we hope we sell X, like.
Hopes and dreams, hopes and dreams.
So, a lot of times people will say, well, what happens with the goal? Well, I like to say, be your goal, maybe they get a bonus, right? Like, cool, you hit your goal. That's great. And that's got to go away at some point because that's your goal.
To exceed your goal, a bonus would be a good idea.
Yep. And then what happens if they don't hit it is I love 12 months, rolling 12 months. You get a 3 strikes rule. You can not hit your goal 3 times in 12 months. But if you don't hit your goal 4th time, we have to PIP them, performance improvement plan them. If you don't, you might even do it the 2nd time. And clarity is kind. Letting people know they're not meeting your expectation is critical.
Well, I think that's another key point is we have to know what we're looking at so we can hold people accountable along with the training. And they have to know what they're listening. So we can't just go and be like, here's your goal, and then 3 months later go, look, like, well, you didn't make that.
Right. You have to evoke and be very transparent on what happens if people don't hit their goals so they know. Because one, you as a leader will overthink it and be like, well, what happened was their grandmother had their appendix out that month. So totally reasonable on why they didn't hit their sales goal.
Absolutely.
And then you'd be like, we're not going to do it this month, next month. Well, it rained 2 days this month, meaning prospecting was just a little harder.
Yeah.
So we can't hold it. It's going to be like, well,
The internet did work for half a day.
Yeah.
In half of the city.
Yeah.
So the clients could not answer their phone.
That's where we're at. Like, you have to just be upfront and be like, it's cut or die. It's a strike. You have 2 more. Go back and sell. Like, I just think that that's a scenario that I really like in agencies. We could do the 3 strikes and you're out.
I think it's a great idea.
So, Stephen, can you speak from your experience, like why sales training is a great strategy for your producers?
I think sales training is a great strategy for producers because it helps set the expectation. So it's not just like just go find leads and sell things, right? It's very strategic. We're setting goals, we're showing them the follow-up process, we're helping them find the ways to run the account or add the extra value. And then how to really close the sale in a less transactional way. We're building a relationship from the beginning that's fitting the culture of the agency or the sales process that works for the agency.
Yeah. I like if agencies have their defined salesperson process and the producer has to fit into it, as opposed to building a sales process around each producer. There could be tweaks based on what they're focused on, but like, hey, here's our process. And our agencies out there, if you don't have some kind of sales dashboard that people can track all their leads, you're missing out because leads get dropped. You can't see the pipeline. You can't manage a pipeline you can't see. And producers be like, I got so much going on right now. I got such a big
It's all in my notebook. I'll show you next week.
Listen, this guy right here, he's gonna close, and he'll talk about it for like 9 months.
Yeah.
9 months is like the longest sales process for a $5,000 policy I've ever seen. Right? So check out our sales training. I just think that it is great. We have 2. We have our inbound sales training, lead generate, how to walk anybody through that. And by the way, this is not, I just want to be clear, this is not super like aggressive sales. This is relationship driven sales. This is just walking people through who might service and sell the steps to presenting the quote, how to overcome objections, how to build rapport, things that are going to make a difference when you quote. If you really listen to people on the phone in many agencies, they have a quote process on a sales process. We're trying to change that. Then we have our commercial sales training course too, where you can learn about prospecting and how to have a commercial sales process. So that one. But oh, and then we have our cross-selling course too, where you can get cross-selling.
I love cross-selling. Who's the easiest customer to sell? The one you already have.
Listen, Steven is someday going to sell like lead PPP because he's going to find an agency that just wants to pay him for cross-selling.
I literally said if I ever had to pick a career choice, it would be walk into a large agency and say, "Can you pay me commission on everything I cross-sell?"
Yeah, and I'm going to say I'm not going to name names because I don't want to but we have an agency that came a little short-staffed due to some strategic turnover. No one's upset that these people turned over. So the owner, in decent sized agency, is like, I'm just going to go be an account manager and just like watch our processes. She's like, I'm just going to jump in the bullpen. Like, we're short-staffed. I want to see how things work. She called me up the other day. I was like, what's going on? I haven't heard from much. I know, Kelly, I'm an account manager in the bullpen. And I've been doing renewal calls, and this is Thursday. She's like, I got 6 cross sells this week.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just talking to these people, talking about umbrella, talking about
what they already have and provide the need.
She's like, someone on my team doesn't have 6 for the month. And I was like, well, then we need to get them through the cross sell training class. She's like, hey, man, I was thinking about that once we get the people. So there's so much opportunity in your group. But like he said that he's going to leave to go pay per cross sell. I say I'm going to buy an agency and not take a single piece of new business for a year and work book. Like you call me for a quote and be like, listen, I appreciate it. We're just not accepting any new clients right now. Just like a doctor's office.
Yeah.
But I'll put you on the wait list. This is going to be the greatest insurance ever. And I would clean the whole book, polish it, make it pretty.
Yeah.
Like the data would be clean. Everybody would be like A-level customer. We divorce the bogus customers out there. And then I would reopen and have a grand reopening of our agency. Saying we're officially taking new business with a sales team. That's like I would take a year and I would rehab that.
There you go.
So that's our tips. But check out our sales training. We love you all. See you in the next podcast.